I stand at the back of my own funeral, leaning heavily on my cane, watching my husband deliver what appears to be a heartfelt eulogy. My sister Danielle clutches his arm, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief I gave her last Christmas. The irony isn't lost on me. Claire was the love of my life. Trent's voice breaks convincingly. The emptiness she leaves behind can never be filled. My headquarters, my beloved design firm that I built from nothing, is filled with mourners, clients, employees, and board members all gathered in the atrium I personally redesigned 3 years ago. The white lilies scattered throughout the space were Danielle's touch, no doubt. I'm allergic to them. I am still watching them all, calculating when to step up. My cane trembles against the marble floor, the small sound echoing in a momentary lull. Heads turn. A gasp ripples through the crowd as recognition dawns. Trent stops mid-sentence, the eulogy card fluttering from his fingers. When I was 7, I say, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. My sister clung to my hand and begged me never to leave her. I take one step forward, then another. But last month, she and my husband pushed me out of a helicopter over Jackson Hole for $3.8 million. Trent's face drains of color. Danielle's mouth opens in silent horror. The perfect picture of shocked innocence. The memory washes over me, Trent insisting on a surprise 40th birthday trip to Wyoming. This will heal us, he'd promised, his eyes earnest as he packed my suitcase. You've been so distant lately, Claire, we need this. What I needed was a business partner who wasn't sabotaging me behind my back. A husband who wasn't plotting my death. But I didn't know that then. Yet now I know, and from this moment I am changing my tactics. I remember Danielle's unusual attentiveness during the trip, constantly refilling my wine glass at dinner. You work too hard, she'd said. Just relax and enjoy yourself for once. Then there was the whispered conversation I overheard the night before the helicopter tour. Trent, voice low but excited. After tomorrow, everything changes. Everything did change, just not how they planned. Now everything is in my hands. I step fully into the light now. More gasps ripple through the gathered mourners. Someone drops a glass. The crash punctuates the moment perfectly. Trent recovers first, his performer's instincts kicking in. He rushes toward me, arms outstretched. Claire! My God, you're alive! His voice catches with practiced emotion. We've been searching everywhere. The trembling in my hands stops. I feel steadier than I have in weeks as I raise my phone, screen facing the crowd. Really? Then why did you file my life insurance claim 3 days ago? I deliberately raise my voice to be heard loud and clear. His step falters. Behind him, Danielle's mascara-streaked face contorts with something between fear and rage. The room erupts in commotion. My board members, led by Malcolm and Patricia, immediately move to surround me protectively. Several guests block the exits. Trent looks from face to face, searching for allies and finding none. I should feel vindicated by their response, but all I can think about is what comes next. If Trent and Danielle manage to paint me as mentally unstable, a grieving wife who fabricated an attempted murder, I could lose everything. And suddenly I understand with perfect clarity, my company was always the target. Not just the insurance money, they wanted my life's work. The realization hits me like a physical blow. While I focused on creating spaces that transformed how people lived, my husband plotted to steal it all. You're confused, sweetheart. Trent tries again, his voice honeyed with concern. The trauma of your accident. Stop. My voice doesn't shake. There was no accident. There was only a betrayal. Malcolm steps forward, his voice hard as he addresses the security team. Mr. Dawson won't be leaving until the police arrive. Trent's charming facade cracks. Claire, be reasonable, you fell. We thought you were dead. This is all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I laugh, the sound strange even to my own ears. I understand perfectly now. I just never thought the people who claimed to love me would be the ones to try to kill me. As police sirens wail in the distance, I realize this is just the beginning. They tried to erase me, my life, my company, my legacy, but I survived the fall, and now they'll wish they had too. I will make sure everything works out well. A day later, at my office, my fingers tremble as I hold the transfer documents. The signature at the bottom looks like mine, but the strokes are too precise, too measured. I've never signed my name that perfectly in my life. My cane presses into the marble floor as I lean heavily against my desk, knuckles white around the mahogany handle. When did these come through? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Malcolm slides another folder across my desk. 3 months ago, well before your accident. I flip through page after page of fraudulent paperwork. Each signature is more convincing than the last. The systematic dismantling of everything I've built over 12 years, executed with surgical precision. There's more. Malcolm says, his voice tight. Trent has been meeting with Hartwell Designs. My head snaps up. Our biggest competitor? 4 meetings in the last 2 months. Always off-site, always without documentation in his calendar. A draft press release slides from between the papers. I catch it before it hits the floor. Dawson Design Interiors mourns the tragic passing of founder Claire Dawson. The date on the document is 2 weeks before my Wyoming trip. They were never going to just take my money. I whisper. They wanted everything. The afternoon light catches on a framed photo of Trent and me at the company's 10th anniversary. His arm around my waist, my smile genuine. I turn it face down. In Jenna's office later that day, I sit with my leg propped on a cushioned stool while my attorney stands beside her desk, ramrod straight in her charcoal suit. My accountant Greg hunches over spreadsheets, while Lydia from HR nervously twists her wedding band. The withdrawals started small. Greg explains, pushing his glasses higher on his nose. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Nothing that would trigger immediate alerts. Where did the money go? I ask. A property management company. They own a luxury condo development downtown. Jenna interjects. Where your sister has been living for the past 6 months. The betrayal cuts deeper with each revelation. My shoulder throbs where it dislocated during my fall. There's the matter of your medical records. Lydia says, her voice barely audible. Trent requested copies 2 months ago, said it was for insurance purposes. And the policy itself, Jenna adds, was modified 60 days before your trip. The payout increased by $2 million, and certain exclusions were removed. I close my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. Exclusions like accidental death? Jenna nods, her mouth a tight line. He's been positioning himself as the stabilizing force. Lydia continues. Emails to department heads suggesting your management had become erratic. Classic gaslighting, Jenna says. Create a narrative that makes the victim seem unstable, then step in as the reasonable alternative. Outside, rain begins to fall against the windows. I watch the droplets trace paths down the glass, feeling every bit as fragile and transparent as I've been made to appear. Corbin Manufacturing called this morning, Greg says, breaking the silence. They're concerned about their upcoming project. Trent apparently reached out to them about a new leadership direction at the firm. My stomach tightens. Corbin is our largest commercial client. The 6-story redevelopment project they'd entrusted to me would keep 20 of my designers employed for the next year. The board received emails about your concerning behavior in the weeks before your trip, Lydia adds, supposedly from anonymous staff members. 3 of them came from IP addresses linked to your home network, Jenna says, during hours when you were documented to be at client meetings. I stare at the ceiling, fighting back tears. While I was creating spaces for others to thrive, my husband was systematically destroying the space I had built for myself. The Greater Boston Business Journal ran a profile on Trent last week, Greg says, sliding a printout across the table, highlighting his strength during tragedy and his plans for the company's future. The headline reads, Design firm CFO maintains vision after founder's tragic accident. Trent's photograph shows him looking appropriately somber in our office, my office seated at my desk. If we don't counter his narrative soon, Jenna warns, your return might be seen as the disruption, not his takeover. My phone buzzes. An email from the insurance company's special investigator. The subject line makes me smile for the first time in hours. Claim processing halted. Death certificate required. Small victories. I just smile a bit and turn to our plan. I look down at the forged documents spread across the table. The meticulous plan to erase me first from my company, then from existence. The question weighs heavily. Do I expose them immediately, halting their access to company assets? Or do I work quietly, gathering more evidence to ensure they can never recover from what they've done? As I studied the forged documents, I wondered if I should publicly expose Trent and Danielle immediately, or gather more evidence first. Going public would stop them from accessing company assets, but working quietly might reveal the full extent of their betrayal. What would you do when facing betrayal from those you trusted most? I tap my finger against the insurance email. We move carefully, I decide. But we move now. Next week, Tuesday, the emergency board meeting Trent calls happens precisely at the moment I'm least prepared to face it. 2 hours after a physical therapy session that left me gasping in pain, with a throbbing reminder that my body hasn't forgiven the fall any more than I've forgiven the push. Miss! Dawson appears to be suffering from severe post-traumatic delusions, Trent says, his voice dripping with rehearsed concern as he addresses our board. Her accusations against Danielle and myself are symptoms of psychological distress following her accident. I watch 3 board members exchange glances. Malcolm shifts uncomfortably in his seat, while Patricia studies her folded hands. Only Bernard, who golfed with Trent monthly, nods along. Perhaps, Bernard suggests, leaning forward, Claire should consider a recovery leave. A few months to heal, both physically and, he taps his temple, mentally. While Trent maintains operations, adds Patricia, not quite meeting my eyes. I remain silent, only writing down the keywords on the paper. I know what I am going to do. That evening at home, I see Danielle's tearful interview on the local news. My sister has always been so strong, she says, dabbing at perfectly dry eyes with a tissue. But this trauma has changed her. We're all concerned about her state of mind. The next morning, the business journal that once featured me as Designer of the Year runs a full-page article questioning my fitness to lead. By afternoon, details of my medical treatment in Wyoming, records that should be protected by privacy laws, appear in 3 separate online publications. They are crossing the limits, but I let them be. Soon I will turn this game around and win for sure. The pain medication wears off at 3 a.m. I lie on the leather couch in my office, staring at the ceiling I designed with subtle lighting that's supposed to evoke calm. Nothing about my life feels calm anymore. The building settles around me with familiar creaks that once brought comfort. Now every sound makes me wonder if Trent has returned to finish what he started. During meetings in days to come, I catch the sympathetic but questioning looks from employees who've heard the rumors. Their eyes linger on my cane, then dart away when I notice. Their smiles seem strained, uncertain if they're speaking to their visionary leader or the unstable woman Trent has described to anyone who will listen. I begin carrying a small recorder in my pocket, documenting every conversation every time we have all kinds of meetings. My desk drawers fill with detailed records, times, dates, witnesses, exact words spoken. The beautiful sketchbooks that once overflowed with design inspiration now contain only defensive strategies and counterattacks. For the first time since opening my firm 12 years ago, I haven't generated a single new design concept in weeks. My creative well has dried up, replaced by a survival instinct that consumes every ounce of mental energy. The architectural magazines that once inspired me sit unopened on my credenza. Friends who attended my funeral now avoid my calls. One former college roommate texts that she needs space to process everything, as if my continued existence is somehow inconvenient for her emotional landscape. The dinner invitations that once cluttered my calendar have evaporated. "You look like hell," Roger announces, appearing in my doorway one Tuesday morning. Our building maintenance manager for 15 years, Roger's unfiltered honesty usually makes me laugh. Today, I can barely muster a grimace. He sets a container on my desk. My mother's chicken soup recipe still works, even when what's ailing you isn't a cold. The simple kindness nearly breaks me. I stare at the container, afraid to speak. Roger leans against the doorframe, arms crossed over his faded uniform shirt. "My wife left me for my best friend 30 years ago. Trust me, you'll design their funerals yet." A startled laugh escapes me, the first genuine laugh in weeks. It feels like discovering a muscle I'd forgotten I had. "Thanks, Roger." He nods once and disappears down the hallway. Later that afternoon, Danielle arrives at my private design studio unannounced. She wears her camera-ready outfit-fitted blazer, designer jeans, hair arranged in what her followers call her casual perfection style. "Claire, please." She begins the moment the door closes. "You have to stop this. The police questions, the insurance investigation, it's too much." I continue sketching at my drafting table, not bothering to look up. What part should I stop, Danielle? The part where I survive, or the part where I hold you accountable? It was all Trent's idea. Her voice drops to a desperate whisper. He said no one would get hurt, just a simple insurance claim with you disappearing. I never meant for you to die. Now I do look up, studying the sister I once protected from playground bullies. The sister who clung to my hand through our parents' divorce. The sister who, apparently, decided my life was worth less than a payday. Without speaking, I slide my tablet across the table. On the screen are screenshots of Danielle's private Instagram stories, the ones visible only to her inner circle, not her public followers. OMG, can't wait for next month's helicopter adventure. Operation Freedom about to commence. New life. Coming into money. Goodbye, control freak. Posted 3 weeks before our Wyoming trip. Danielle's perfect posture crumples. She drops into the chair opposite me, her manicured hand covering her mouth. I was jealous, she whispers. You've always been the successful one, the smart one. Everyone admires you. Her voice hardens slightly. But no one admires me unless I'm posting the perfect life online. And Trent? He has buyers lined up already. The company will be sold off in pieces within 6 months. She looks up, mascara streaking despite her waterproof claims. He never loved you, Claire. He only loved what you could build. Something shifts inside me, a weight lifting. I've spent weeks fighting to hold on to people who never deserved my loyalty. You once begged me never to leave you. I say quietly. I kept that promise. You're the one who left long before that helicopter. She leaves without a word, knowing what she has done, and now it's my turn to make a move. The next morning, Jenna arrives with temporary restraining orders against both Trent and Danielle. My attorney doesn't just provide legal protection. She becomes my strategist, helping me navigate the battlefield my life has become. Roger surprises me by organizing an impromptu security detail with 2 longtime employees. They create rotating schedules, ensuring I'm never alone in the building. Where my family manipulated and gaslighted, these people listen. Where Trent and Danielle undermined, my makeshift support system validates. The contrast between these relationships illuminates everything. For the first time in months, I sleep through the night. The constant pain in my leg begins to subside. During a late-night strategy session with Jenna, I sketch a chair design on a napkin without even realizing it, the first creative impulse I've had since Wyoming. I spend the weekend preparing a comprehensive presentation for the upcoming full board meeting. Every allegation Trent has made is countered with documentation. Every rumor is traced back to its source. Every financial manipulation is exposed with forensic precision. I found something. Jenna says Sunday night, voice tight with excitement over the phone. Trent attempted to sell your Harrington Hotel lobby design to the Meridian Group last Tuesday. That's intellectual property he doesn't own, I say, understanding immediately. Exactly, and I have the emails to prove it. Monday morning arrives with a clarity I haven't felt since before the helicopter. I stride toward the boardroom, my cane now more accessory than necessity. Through the glass walls, I see the board members taking their seats. And there, at the head of my table, sits Trent, arranging papers as if he belongs there. Our eyes meet through the glass. His confident smile falters for just a moment. I push open the door. I enter the boardroom with my team behind, ready to protect everything I built during all these years. My portfolio of evidence is organized with meticulous precision. The mahogany table gleams under recessed lighting, a detail I specified when designing this space 3 years ago. Back then, I'd envisioned passionate discussions about design innovation, not fighting for my professional life against the man who tried to murder me. Trent sits at the head of my table, scrolling through his phone with practiced nonchalance. He glances up, his momentary shock quickly masked by a concerned smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Claire, you really should be resting. Everyone understands if you need more recovery time. I place my materials at the opposite end, claiming my rightful position. I've rested enough. Board members file in, their expressions a mix of curiosity and discomfort. Malcolm, our silver-haired treasurer, offers a nod of encouragement. The others maintain careful neutrality, waiting to see which way the wind blows before committing. When everyone is seated, I begin without preamble, my voice steady. 3 weeks ago, I was pushed from a helicopter during what was presented as a birthday celebration. I opened the first folder, sliding documents across the polished surface. While I was fighting for survival in Wyoming wilderness, these transfer documents bearing my signature were processed. I maintain eye contact with each person as I speak, noting reactions. Patricia, our marketing director, frowns at the papers. Notice the date stamps. I continue, tapping the corner of the document. According to hospital records, I was unconscious in a rural medical center when I supposedly signed these. Unless I've developed the ability to teleport while in a coma, these signatures are forgeries. Malcolm's expression shifts from polite attention to barely contained anger as he examines the evidence. That's a ridiculous accusation. Trent interrupts, leaning forward. Claire obviously signed these before our trip. She's confused about the timeline because of her trauma. I reveal the second folder. These are photos of competitive meetings Trent held while I was hospitalized. The images show Trent shaking hands with Julian Winters, our most aggressive competitor. Paired with these are photos of my injuries from the fall. I place them side by side, Trent's smiling face against images of my broken body. The juxtaposition speaks volumes. The room falls silent. Trent's face flushes with anger before he stands abruptly. This is absurd. Claire orchestrated her own disappearance for publicity. She's been struggling with the company's direction for months, ask anyone. Actually, Mr. Dawson, a quiet voice interjects from the doorway. The insurance investigator I invited steps forward, file in hand. Your timeline has several inconsistencies. You claim to have searched the area for 2 days, but helicopter logs show you requested extraction within 3 hours. You also filed the insurance claim before a mandatory waiting period for missing persons. Trent's charming facade cracks. She's manipulating you all. Before she disappeared, she deleted critical company files, ask Sarah in IT. Sarah, her curly hair pulled back severely, looks up from her tablet. I can confirm file deletions occurred on the company server at 2:13 p.m. on the day in question. However, at that exact time, Mrs. Dawson was documented in surgery at Wyoming Medical Center. The deletion originated from an IP address associated with your personal laptop, Mr. Dawson. Board members exchange glances, the room's atmosphere shifting palpably. Each of Trent's statements is now met with open skepticism. Claire. Malcolm speaks directly to me, ignoring Trent entirely. Do you wish to press criminal charges against both your husband and sister? The question hangs in the air. Would seeking maximum justice bring me peace? Or would focusing on rebuilding my company and my life be the better path forward? Before I can answer, Jenna steps forward with her leather portfolio. My attorney's confidence fills the room as she presents notarized documents securing my ownership rights. These papers nullify any transfer attempts made during Mrs. Dawson's absence. She explains. They've already been filed with the appropriate authorities. Sarah follows with technical evidence backup records proving my designs were specifically targeted for theft. The files weren't randomly deleted. Someone searched specifically for Claire's signature collections and removed them from our secure server. Roger, our building manager of 20 years, surprises me by stepping forward next. His weathered hands clasp before him as he speaks. For 3 months, I've heard Mr. Dawson making late-night calls from this very room, talking about selling off company assets once he took control. I noted dates and times, figuring it wasn't my business until Mrs. Dawson returned and needed to know. Together, their testimonies create an unbreakable timeline of conspiracy. The evidence is overwhelming. Malcolm calls for an immediate vote, and the board unanimously agrees to remove Trent from all company positions, effective immediately. Trent's carefully maintained charm dissolves entirely. His face contorts with naked fury as security appears at the doorway. You ungrateful bitch! He hisses, all pretense abandoned. I made you successful. Nobody wanted your designs before I started selling them. As he's escorted from the building, my phone buzzes with notifications. Danielle's social media sponsors are already dropping her as the story spreads. The design community has started a Designers for Truth hashtag, rallying around my return. Malcolm places a business card before me, the editor of our local business journal. They're requesting an exclusive interview about your extraordinary comeback. I stare at the card, feeling the weight of eyes upon me. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about reclaiming my narrative and deciding what comes next. A week later, I steady myself against the conference room doorway, watching Trent and Danielle arrange themselves on the opposite side of the table. Their matching navy suits and rehearsed expressions remind me of funeral directors preparing to discuss casket options. Claire, we're proposing a sensible compromise. Trent slides a folder across the polished surface, his voice adopting that professional tone he reserves for difficult clients. A quiet divorce settlement. You drop the allegations. We both walk away with dignity intact. Danielle's eyes dart nervously to the corners of the room, then back to me. Think about mom and dad, she says, dabbing at invisible tears. This public family scandal is destroying them. I remain standing, one hand resting lightly on my cane. The pain in my leg has dulled to a persistent throb, a reminder of survival rather than weakness. We've prepared reasonable terms. Trent taps the folder with manicured fingers. But understand, Claire, if you choose the alternative. He pauses, letting the threat hang between us. I have certain information about your personal life that would raise serious questions about your stability. Danielle leans forward, her practiced sympathy almost convincing. A prolonged legal battle will only destroy what's left of the company. Is that what you want? To burn down everything you built? I allow myself a small smile as I finally ease into my chair. You know what fascinated me about designing spaces? I run my finger along the table edge, learning that people rarely notice the recording equipment built into modern conference rooms. Their expressions freeze as I point to the small red light glowing in the ceiling panel. That light means we're recording. Has been since you walked in? I open my laptop, turning the screen toward them. Just like your meeting last Tuesday at the Westbrook, where you discussed which of my clients you'd approach first after my unfortunate breakdown. Trent's face hardens. You're bluffing. The 18th of January email from you to Danielle. I read from the screen. Once the policy pays out, we'll need to act quickly before questions arise. The 3rd of February. Claire's been distracted lately. Perfect timing for our Wyoming surprise. I look up. Should I continue with the helicopter rental agreement that specifically requested no safety briefing? Danielle's complexion matches the white walls behind her. You didn't just try to kill me. I say, my voice steady and clear. You tried to erase everything I've built. That's not something I can compromise on. I press a button on my phone. The conference room door opens as Malcolm enters with a stack of documents. Our board unanimously approved new company safety protocols yesterday. Malcolm announces, distributing the papers, inspired by Claire's experience. 2-person authorization required for all financial transactions, regular security audits, mandatory background checks for all leadership positions. You're overreacting, Trent attempts, but his voice lacks conviction. The Phoenix collection launches next month. I continue as if he hadn't spoken. Advance orders have already exceeded our quarterly projections. Malcolm displays digital renderings on the wall screen. 15 major clients have committed, including Westmark Properties. Westmark is my client, Trent snaps. Malcolm corrects. Their CEO specifically requested Claire's direct involvement after hearing her story. I stand, steadier now than when I entered. This meeting is over. Security will escort you from the building. 2 weeks later, I stand in the transformed atrium of my headquarters, surrounded by the unveiling of the Phoenix collection. In 2 weeks, I transformed it into completely new branches. The space pulses with energy as clients, designers, and media representatives mingle beneath floating panels of shattered glass reconstructed into luminous wings. The centerpiece installation rises from the floor to the skylights, a spiral staircase surrounded by cascading water elements that represent the fall and subsequent rise. Subtle helicopter silhouettes cast shadows across broken truss symbols that transform into healing imagery as visitors ascend the stairs. I catch sight of Danielle attempting to slip past the entrance, her signature red hair partially hidden under a hat. Roger notices my glance and nods, moving smoothly to intercept her. I watch as he politely but firmly redirects her toward the exit. Ladies and gentlemen, I step to the microphone, the soft tap of my cane punctuating my arrival. The room quiets. The Phoenix collection represents more than design innovation. It's about creating spaces where authenticity and security coexist. Cameras flash as I continue. When we experience trauma, physical or emotional, our relationship with space fundamentally changes. We begin to see walls not just as design elements but as protection. Windows become points of vulnerability rather than light sources. I gesture to the transformed atrium. This collection reimagines spaces that honor both our need for security and our desire for beauty, because surviving isn't enough. We deserve to thrive in surroundings that acknowledge our journey. I nod to Jenna, who unveils a digital display. Today, I'm announcing the establishment of the Reclamation Foundation. I continue. Dedicated to helping women rebuild their lives after betrayal. It will provide housing, legal support, and career mentorship. I pause, savoring the moment. The foundation's initial funding comes from my life insurance policy. the very one that was meant to finance my disappearance. Applause erupts through the room. I spot Trent's former ally, the editor of the business journal, frantically taking notes. Later that evening, I review the day's success from my office, finally reclaimed from the temporary bedroom it had become. My phone buzzes with a notification from my attorney, rumors that criminal charges will be filed against Trent for attempted murder and fraud. I silence it. My parents have called 8 times today. Their voicemails vacillate between concern for me and pleas to understand Danielle's difficult position. The divide between their daughters clearly tears at them. A courier envelope sits unopened on my desk, delivered this afternoon from Danielle's former boyfriend, with a note promising, "Information you should have. I'll deal with that tomorrow." For now, I turn my attention to the cream-colored envelope that arrived in today's mail. I slide my finger under the flap and remove the heavy cardstock inside. The American Design Association cordially invites you to the annual Design Excellence Awards. I read aloud to the empty office, where your Phoenix collection has been nominated for Design of the Year. I place the invitation on my desk, allowing myself a moment of pure, uncomplicated pride. They tried to erase me. Instead, they made me unforgettable. After all the mess, I am standing strong on the ground. I stand at the helm of Dawson Design Interiors, watching my expanded team collaborate on our newest commercial project. My fingers trace the subtle phoenix emblem embroidered on my slate gray blazer, a reminder of how far I've come. 6 months ago, I couldn't walk without a cane. Today, I move through the studio with steady confidence, my body healed, my company flourishing. "Claire," the Henderson account called. "They want to feature your resilience aesthetics in their new headquarters." My assistant hands me the message with a smile. I nod, feeling a quiet satisfaction. "Schedule a meeting next week, and make sure we involve Melissa. Her perspective will be valuable." Melissa glances up at the mention of her name. A promising young designer who joined us after her previous firm collapsed in scandal, leaving her nearly destitute. She reminds me of myself at 25, talented but wounded. Under my mentorship, she's blossoming. Architectural Digest wants an interview about the Phoenix collection, my assistant adds. "They're calling it revolutionary." I smile. My designs no longer aim to please critics or chase trends. Each space I create now tells a story of authentic healing environments that shelter without confining, that offer both security and growth. The industry has responded with enthusiasm I never anticipated. "Tell them yes," I say, "but on our terms." Later that week, I stand at the edge of a snow-covered ridge in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Wind whips my hair as I gaze at the expanse below where I should have died. The helicopter pad where Trent and Danielle's plan began sits in the distance, unchanged and ordinary. I pull my sketchbook from my bag, surprised by the steadiness in my hands. 6 months ago, I imagined this moment differently: tears, rage, perhaps vindication. Instead, I find myself opening to a fresh page, my pencil moving with purpose. The landscape transforms beneath my fingers. Not into a memorial of trauma, but into a concept for a wilderness retreat, a place where others who've survived betrayal might come to reclaim their stories. I came here looking for what I lost. I whisper to the wind. Instead, I found what I never knew I had. Before leaving, I place a small bronze marker near the ridge, not where I fell, but where I stood back up. The inscription reads simply, "Claire Dawson, Rebirth, the 15th of January, 2023. Not commemorating my near death, but celebrating my return to life." The gathering at my home the following evening is intimate, just the people who stood by me when everything collapsed. Jenna raises her glass, her attorney's precision momentarily softened by emotion. Roger, my building manager, beams with grandfatherly pride. Sarah from IT nudges her glasses higher on her nose, unaccustomed to social gatherings but smiling nonetheless. To the family we choose, I say, not the family we're given. Their faces reflect back the truth I've finally embraced, that loyalty isn't determined by blood but by choice. I present each of them with a custom-designed item. For Jenna, a delicately balanced scale sculpture that somehow conveys both justice and mercy. For Roger, a hand-tooled leather journal embossed with his favorite saying about designing funerals. For Sarah, a digital picture frame displaying constantly changing code that, when viewed from a distance, forms a shield. 2 weeks later, I stand at a podium facing hundreds of women entrepreneurs. The spotlight feels warm on my face as I share my story of betrayal and rebuilding. The design principles that saved my company now shape my life. I tell them, create spaces that reflect your authentic self. Remove elements that destabilize your foundation. Build in protection without sacrificing openness. My newly published book sits on display near the stage. Beside it, contracts for healing spaces in hospitals, women's shelters, and corporate environments that my expanded company will design this year. In the back row, I spot my parents, sitting quietly, uncertainty etched in their expressions. They're beginning to understand the daughter they failed to protect, not through my explanations, but through witnessing who I've become. I hold up the newspaper with Trent's conviction headline, then deliberately set it down unopened. As I set down the past and turn toward my future, I say to the rapt audience, I wondered if true freedom comes from justice served, or from no longer needing that justice to heal. What would you choose? Witnessing those who hurt you face consequences, or reaching a place where those consequences no longer matter to your happiness? The question hangs in the air, not requiring an answer. I found mine.